Hey guys, Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. Welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on the 6x45, our poor man's PPC. I've been spending a lot of time working on the precision hand loading series and haven't really talked much about this project, what's been going on in the background. So I recently returned from my first prairie dog trip of the year, where I brought out my long range 223 and my 6x45, and the 6x45 I think I put about 600 rounds through, and it performed flawlessly and did really well using range pickup brass, cheap Gen X Bosnian primers, and cheap Spear TNT 70 grain flat base bullets. Even using a mishmash of different range pickups that I brought with, and loading each of those range pickups with the same load regardless of the head stamp, it shot very well. And on that trip I did use accurate LT30, and that worked really well. But now what we're doing is I'm gonna see what I can wring out of this cartridge and setup and rifle that I have as far as precision and long range precision. And I'm gonna start by forming some Lapua 223 Remington match brass into 6x45. And I just want to walk you guys through that process and then talk a little bit about what I'm going to be testing likely tomorrow. So this cartridge is technically a Wildcat, meaning, you know, there's two different types of oddball cartridges. One is Wildcat, and then one or the other is the improved cartridges. And an improved cartridge is something that you can take the standard cartridge and just a loaded cartridge and just stick it in the chamber, pull the trigger, and it will expand and turn into something else. That's improving a cartridge. Where a Wildcat is, there's no you can't just stick it in and fire it and turn it into something else. It means you have to do something to the brass before you can load it to shoot it in your Wildcat chamber. There's no simple way of just loading up a standard cartridge and shooting it to improve it. This actually has to have work done before you can load it. And this one is one of the easiest that I've ever even heard of. So I just want to walk you guys through that process and maybe lower the intimidation factor with it, because it is very simple. Well, there's two different ways you could be going about this. You could be trying to use 223 Remington range pickups and converting that into 6x45. What I would recommend is get some type of full-length sizing die set. This happens to be the RCBS 6x45 small base die set. That's not required. That's just what I was able to find locally, and I knew I was going to be using range pickups, so I thought the small base wouldn't hurt my cause. So that's what I got. And what I would recommend if you're doing range pickups is to basically follow the instructions in the die box, where you're screwing the sizing die in enough so that you get cam over at the bottom, where the shell holder hits the die before it's camming over, and then you get that actual cam over action. That's what I'd recommend for sizing range pickups. If you're sizing virgin brass, you can do the same thing. There's no harm in that. Or you could try to get some loaded up, you know, just expand the neck, load some up with a generic charge, go shoot it, and then once you have fired brass, you can come back and size it accordingly based on that fired brass to try to size it optimally and only get, you know, 2 to 3 thousandths shoulder bump, which I explained thoroughly in our precision hand loading series. I'll link that video up in the corner here to show you how to size with precision based on brass that's been fired in your chamber. But I just wanted to show you just how simple the conversion is with this video and talk a little bit about what I'm going to be testing next. So I already have, this is our Lapua 223 Remington brass. I've already lubed it, but I'm going to do it again just to show you. One thing I should say that's different is there's a lot of different lubes you can use. The one shot works fine for this. If you are converting brass that's been fired in a 223, like range pickups or whatever, I recommend lubing the case all the way to the base and also lubing inside the case mouth, because the case mouth needs to be expanded. But if it's already been fired, this is the most important part to lube down here, so you need to make sure the base of the case is lubed. So you might have to not lube it in one of these trays. You might have to have it exposed so you can get the whole body and inside the case mouth. But since we're just converting these, the base doesn't really need to be lubed above the extractor groove. We're just more concerned with the body and the case mouth. So very simple. You don't have to get carried away. You want to make sure that you spray a decent amount in the case mouth, because the expander is going to be opening that mouth up. And once you have your die set, you don't have to baby this or do it gingerly. If you guys watch the Precision Hand Loading series, you know I don't tiptoe this stuff in there. So once you know you have the piece of brass all the way to the back of the shell holder, you can run it in there. And if you measure the brass beforehand, you'll see that I have the die set to give me the appropriate amount of bump that I want. And the case mouth is expanded to accept a 6mm bullet. There's no harm done to the brass. It's ready to go. So outside of tumbling it just to get the lube off, it does not need to be trimmed. The 6x45 has the same trim tube length as a 223, which is 1 in 760. This is still 1 in 740. Lapua brass typically comes very short, to where you almost never even need to trim it for the life of the brass. But once it's converted, all you have to do is get the lube off it and prep the case mouth, and you're ready to go. So once I have all this converted, I'm going to do what I just said, and then get some rounds loaded up. I'm going to load up some of my 15-shot ladder tests using Accurate LT30, Vihtavuori N130, and Vihtavuori N133. And the bullet I'm going to be using for precision / long range, I chose the Berger 87 grain VLD hunting. I think they only make a hunting version of this bullet. Has a great ballistic coefficient. The G7 is 0.219, which is almost the same as a 308 175 grain Sierra Match King, like what we used in the Precision Hand Loading series. So the ballistic coefficient is almost identical to that. However, I'm going to be able to push it 100 plus feet a second faster than the 308 in that series. So technically this will have better ballistic performance than a 308 with a 175 Match King. So it should be a pretty good performer. Not going to have a ton of energy downrange, but still enough to knock paint off of steel, and a good platform to get a lot of long range practice in at low cost. So I'm just going to finish working on getting these brass prepped and ready to go, and then I'll load up these ladder tests, and tomorrow when we're at the range we'll go through what I actually loaded and take you guys along for the ride on the testing and look at the results and decide where we're going to go from there. So like, subscribe, share with your buddies, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching.